When you're on Minterest, it is like a cooperative. You are earning a share of whatever proceeds the protocol earns. Everybody is. 100% of proceeds goes right back to the users. That is not the case with any other lending protocol. We're the only ones that do that. Everybody else, they're all looking to take your money anytime that they possibly can.
When you look at the way the banking world is now and compare it to some of the innovations in Web3, what do you think that most people should understand?
We have no transparency. You're putting your money into a savings account, which is what we're taught to do. You're earning a fraction of a percent in savings, and yet the bank is making so much more. What would happen if instead, not only did you know what kind of profits that the bank was making, but you received a fair portion of that profit? That's what we're trying to build. When you participate on Minterest, yes, you're earning a fair yield, but on top of that, in the background, there are fees being generated by the protocol, by Minterest. Those fees that are generated, which is the profit, goes right back to everybody who actually deposits and borrows on Minterest itself. So it is a cooperative.
You are describing Minterest really to a key in what you're trying to build, which is much more than a bank can ever be.
That's how banking should be. You can't just magically invent money. $100 goes into the system, everyone can see it. Everybody. You earn proper yield. You have complete transparency with what's happening. You have the ability to have proper savings, to earn, and that means that there are more opportunities for you in life. It opens doors. As people, as individuals, outside of politics and bureaucracy, we genuinely want to be one. And we want things to be fair. And if we build systems together in the right way, with the right incentive structure, we can do that. And that is Web3, that is crypto. It's exciting to see that.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Kin Chaturvedi, the blockchain expert, strategist, and decentralized finance pioneer. You have over 2 decades of experience working in tech startups, including 15 years working in video game development. You were the Chief Business Development Officer at TomoChain, Southeast Asia's leading public blockchain platform, and also served as the studio head for India's largest game developer. Today, you are the CEO of Minterest, the decentralized lending protocol designed to provide superior yields and sustainable tokenomics. Minterest uses a unique protocol-managed buyback process to automatically distribute the value it captures directly back to users. You believe traditional banking has been responsible for many of the economic issues we faced over the past 20 years, and that DeFi offers a transparent alternative to help people everywhere control their financial future. Kin, welcome to London Real.
Thank you so much, Brian. How eloquently you speak as well.
Look, it's great to have you here. And look, I just want to start by saying that Minterest is one of our portfolio companies here at London Real Ventures, the world's first media-powered investment firm, where our mission is to transform the world by investing in cutting-edge Web3 and AI companies while giving our partners marketing exposure across the London Real media platforms and academies. We heighten awareness, create customers, and build communities by leveraging our global audience and extensive network. Kin, super excited to be part of this journey with you and Minterest. It's really exciting stuff. So let's jump in. Most people watching us, they have a bank and they have a relationship with their bank. Probably started when they were a kid, when their parents took them there for their first account. and they probably rinsed and repeated their whole life. And maybe they've never zoomed out and said, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And I think you have this really interesting perspective. You've got crazy experience. Also a lot of background in finance as well, Wharton Business School, etc. When you look at the way the banking world is now and how most people have a relationship and compare it to some of the innovations in Web3, what do you think that most people should understand maybe about the banking system and their relationship?
Yeah, that's when I look at the last, even from the 1950s itself, right? I look at the typical household at the time. You could have a family with a single provider, a child. You could buy a house, you could have a car, you could have savings, and it didn't require a university degree at all. You fast forward to today, and I have a number of very close friends who have done the right thing, the thing that you're supposed to do. You get highly educated, you go to university, get a job, marry a lovely person, have children. They're in their mid-40s, they're doing well in their career supposedly. Yet every single month, they're struggling to have any form of savings. They're all in debt. And my parents in their 20s, they weren't rich. They bought a house. They had a car. They had me. What is happening today, right? And this is kind of when we think about the traditional banking system. The thing that I've been seeing is that, number one, we have no transparency into the system. You have a savings account, and today maybe you're earning under 1% in most places. You look at compare that to the inflation rate of what's happening. It's over 3%. At the very least, officially, right? Yeah. At the very least.
In reality, it could be 6, 7, 8%.
Exactly correct. And so what is a person supposed to do? You decide you're earning a wage. You're performing at your job. You're putting your money into a savings account, which is what we're taught to do, right? Save money. But every year, you're losing out on inflation. The bank takes your money, and what's interesting about it is there's something called the fractionalized system for the banking structure. So you deposit your $100, and all the banks have to do, in the United States in particular, is they can take your $100, take $90 of that, and lend it out to somebody else. Now in your account, you have $100, but in reality, your $90 has gone somewhere else, to somebody else, who then deposits into their bank account. Oh, and then that bank then takes $80 out of that, lends it out to somebody else. Your $100 ends up becoming $1,000 in the system. How does it happen, right? You don't even know that. We don't know that, right? So we're basically creating money out of nothing to begin with. Secondly, we talked about the fact that you're losing money every single year to inflation. But if you looked at in 2021 to 2023, if you looked at real wage increases, compare that to inflation, it was a gap about 50%. So not only are you losing to inflation, the real wage rate was not increasing at the level that it should just even match that of inflation. So your interest rate is lower than it should be, and what you're making is actually losing out every single year for you and for your family. And the thing is, many people don't understand that that's taking place under the hood. All they know is in the real world, their money is not going very far anymore.
Yeah.
And we've seen that the system, the common term, which is actually very true, it is heavily rigged in the sense that your middle class is shrinking. We've known that for a long time. And the money is being basically pushed to the more wealthy, who can do more, but the rest, they're struggling. And even what we used to call the upper middle class, they're not able to do anything. They're not able to earn, they're not able to make ends meet. And that has been frustrating. It's been frustrating for years. And it's one of the reasons why initially when I was exposed to Bitcoin, back in 2009 when it first came out, first I was like, this is nonsense. How can you just create something out of thin air, money, so to speak, right? Made no sense. But year after year, it continued to hit headlines, and I didn't understand why. In 2014, that was kind of my aha moment, because I was seeing that my accounts were not growing, And in fact, the only way to really make your accounts grow, your savings, especially now, what are your options before I get to Bitcoin? You either lose money by putting it in your savings account. If you have the capital saved, you can get a CD and maybe make just above inflation, but you'll lock your money away for over a year. The only other alternative really for most people is to play their hand at the stock market to earn hopefully something more. That is a very risky endeavor, right? If those are your options. So I discovered Bitcoin in 2014. I really discovered it, I should say, because the other problem with traditional banking is not only does it harm your chances at making an earning, or making earnings or savings over time, it also locks you out from many other countries and other people. It dictates who you can do work with. And that means that you have real borders. You have true borders where you cannot operate with other people. I was in a situation where I had to pay a developer in a different country, which had been sanctioned not long before that. Used to pay them through Skrill, and which was like a PayPal equivalent, basically. And that was shut down. Couldn't pay through bank transfer, couldn't pay through PayPal, couldn't pay through Skrill. And I was like, how am I going? I really genuinely love working with that person, but simply because they were living in a country with a nationality that was not accepted, I was being told I couldn't work with them. That wasn't right. So we discussed options, and that's where Bitcoin came up. And I was like, aha, I got it. No borders. That was a big part of it, right? And that also continued to educate. I started to continue to educate myself about the banking system, because that immediately told me there's something wrong. There is something wrong here when I'm limited with who I can work with. So that's there's more to share on that front, but that's kind of the starting point.
Yeah,
of that.
It's interesting because I just saw an interview with Michael Saylor, and he was interviewed by Peter Diamandis, who was on my show as well, and they're both MIT grads a couple years before me, and Michael Saylor's on stage saying, look, he said, with fiat currency, you have no options. And he said, if you're in a corporation, he said the only reason MicroStrategy put their entire balance sheet into Bitcoin is because we couldn't compete with Microsoft. We were a failing company. And most companies and people are failing because their fiat currency is failing them. And again, you hark back to the 50s and 60s when the fiat currency hadn't yet started to fail people, but now it fails them. And if you listen to Michael, he said, unless you're one of the Magnificent Seven, everybody else, in plain terms, is kind of fucked. And he said, what you should do, and this is crazy, he said to every corporation out there, just take your treasury and buy Bitcoin. Because that's the only chance you have. Because he said the cost of capital is 8 or 10%. You're going to earn 2, 3, or 4%. Unless you're some crazy, massive innovator, you have no chance. And yet with Bitcoin, you'll get what he sees as 20% returns. And so it was fascinating to see Michael distill down a point maybe you're trying to make a little bit here, and that a fiat currency system, especially one where a lot of money is being printed, which we didn't even really go there. And if you listen to people like Max Kaiser, who's on the wall here, who originally was talking about Bitcoin, he says that all wars are because of fiat currency.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm there yet, but I can see where they're going. A lot of problems we create because of money that's not worth anything, or because of a banking system we can't trust. Even the fact that as humans, we know deep down inside our money isn't sound. This was an interesting point someone made the other day, is that let's say you've never taken an economics class in your life. Mm-hmm. Let's say you don't even know how to write, but you watch and you realize that your money isn't really that sound. So why work for it? Why save it? Why even show up every day to life if you know you can't trust, in a weird way, the universe around you? Imagine if you had extremely sound money like Bitcoin, or kind of what you're building, where you don't have a fractional reserve way of saving. Would it even change how we show up as humans every day in this world?
That's right. And when we look at those who are accruing wealth, most of their assets are actually not liquid. They're not in fiat. They're in real estate or crypto, in other areas where they diversify, because that's where the growth happens. Cash tends to be where, well, we end up losing out. Fiat is like that. And when it comes to Bitcoin, it is something that allows all of us to participate. And when we think about DeFi now, so blockchain is one thing where we have Bitcoin. It's an asset that has continued to hold value and grow over the course of time. If you, at any point in time in Bitcoin's history, you held it, then there's a very small percentage of people, and over the course of time, who were not in the money, so to speak, right?
Yeah, it's a wild ride, so strap on your seatbelt. But if you hold it for any period of time, you do make money.
That's exactly correct. And now when we think about a level beyond or below Bitcoin, right? We're talking about financial freedom to operate, right? It's about self-custody, that I'm holding my assets for myself. And I know exactly what I'm doing with my own money. I know where it's going. Someone else is not custodying it. And the value of my assets ideally is hopefully increasing over the course of time. But when you're holding cryptocurrency, Bitcoin or other assets, it is at the same time, in a sense, holding those assets under the proverbial mattress, like cash under the mattress. People are not putting that money to work. So what DeFi allows, it's a section decentralized finance, and it's sort of like banking but on the blockchain. Now, what's the difference? The difference is that these decentralized finance banks, like Minterest, like what we're trying to build, it allows for anyone to participate, number one. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can come, you can make a deposit, you can earn an interest rate, right? And typically the savings rates on blockchain, in DeFi, are definitely much better than that in the traditional space. The other thing it allows for you to do is have complete transparency with where the money is actually going. So you can't just magically invent money in this system. There's no fractional reserve banking going on. $100 goes into the system, everyone can see it. Everybody. And on the flip side, when you're making a deposit, there's someone that's possibly borrowing that. When someone borrows, they're paying an interest rate, and that interest rate is transparent. And the interest rate that you earn as a depositor is transparent. So you earn proper yield, you have complete transparency with what's happening, and on top of that, it's run by code. Anyone can audit the code. You can't audit people. You can't audit institutions with centralized databases. But in decentralized finance, on the blockchain, you can have a banking system where anyone can look in and see if something is working properly or not. That's not something you can say.
Yeah, there's a great quote from you where you said, imagine if a traditional bank acted as a cooperative where every account holder was entitled to a proportion of the bank's proceeds in addition to their savings account interest rate. And if every account holder had a real-time transparency into the operations of the bank and had a vote in its future decisions. Now, people are listening to this, if aren't in DeFi, are thinking, what are you talking about? Like, I just go up there, I go to my bank. When I was a kid, I always realized the bank had the most beautiful lobbies in the world. Marble everywhere, these huge places, think about that for a while. But people are listening to this thinking, I didn't even know that was a possibility with a bank. And yet you are describing Minterest really to a key in what you're trying to build, which is much more than a bank can ever be.
That's right. So as we were saying earlier, right, your traditional banks, you're earning a fraction of a percent in savings, and yet the bank is making so much more. And where the profit that is being generated, where is that going? Well, it's lining the pockets of shareholders and the executives at the end of the day. What would happen if instead, not only did you know what kind of profits that the bank was making, but you, as a participant in that bank, received a fair, equitable portion of that profit? That's what we're trying to build. So when you participate in DeFi, when you participate on Minterest, yes, you're earning a fair yield, but on top of that, in the background, there are fees being generated by the protocol, by Minterest. And those fees that are generated, which is the profit, goes right back to everybody who actually deposits and borrows on Minterest itself. So it is a cooperative. It allows for people to have a stake in governance, meaning if you participate on Minterest, you can vote for proposals, create your own proposals to make the system better for everybody. And you do receive a fair share of everything that the protocol makes. That's how banking should be. It should be aligned. The incentives should be aligned. And what we see in traditional banking is they're not. They're entirely misaligned, and they're benefiting a handful of few people and leaving the rest of us out.
And that actually doesn't empower the ecosystem. It doesn't empower growth. It's one thing, all these people get the money, but imagine if you got a real interest rate. What more could you do? What more could you create? It actually, it's not just being myopic that a few people make the money. You're actually not able to grow maybe orders of magnitude if you could just let this money flow, right?
That's exactly correct. And so now what that means is you have the ability to have proper savings, to earn, and that means that there are more opportunities for you in life, right? It opens doors. And that where we've seen over the last 50 years, traditional banking is just not doing, particularly over the last 10 and 15, right? And that's the whole point. This is why when you look at developing countries in particular, right, Southeast Asia, Asia at large, you're seeing a huge migration towards this space, towards Web3, towards crypto, towards holding these assets. And that's because it's the same problem. You have massive inflation, low opportunity, and here not only can people earn some kind of income, but there's also job opportunities too, because the space is growing so rapidly. So learning about it has been empowering to so many people. I used to live in Vietnam. It was one of the opportunities I had as head of business development for Tomo Chain. And what was very interesting, this was back in 2019. This was during a bear market. What was very interesting was to see how many people were so interested in crypto at the time. There were so many gatherings that we would put together just to educate. And those same people, I'm in touch with a number of people that we met at that time, they, over the last cycle, they transformed their lives at the time because they learned about this. They learned about what crypto is, learned about what DeFi is. They put that opportunity, they took the opportunity and made the most of it. Their lives are better for it at this point, and now they're doing the same thing. A number of them are doing the same thing. They're re-educating new people in the same way because they saw that the system was not working the way that they wanted to. It was a very empowering experience for them. And I'm very proud that I was able to at least have some share in that for these people as well at that time.
Now, Web3 gives us this promise of ownership. And so, this is London Real, so let's get real. We had the DeFi summer of 2020, and all of these ideas that we always hoped that would happen in this space started to happen. Yeah. Now, I had Andreas Antonopoulos on this show back in 2015 and 2017 and 2019, and he would talk about the internet of money and the future of money and all these grand ideas before the stablecoin was even invented at the time. And then all of a sudden it happened, and we saw, wow, Compound was growing and Aave was growing, and people were financing, and total value locked was going up, and it was actually happening, right? And it was amazing. And so we finally saw this happen. And so I'm sure people are thinking, Ken, that's old news. Aave's doing that. You can go in there, you can stake your coins, you can get your interest rate, you get your Aave tokens. What's the problem? Why do we need Minterest? And so let's call this out. And I had Stanley on this show. He sat in that chair a few years ago. I love what he's done with Aave, amazing innovations. But there's also a problem with that. And there's room for someone to come in here and optimize that even further, I think. And I'd love for you to explain the difference between what you do and, say, an Aave. Sure,
absolutely. Happy to say that. So you're right. Aave, Compound, they absolutely innovated in this space with DeFi lending. Stanley's awesome. I've met him once in the past, and he's a brilliant individual. The thing that we noticed in DeFi lending 3 years ago when we were designing Minterest was that DeFi lending is, number one, it's inefficient, and number two, it can be predatory. So let me explain what that is. So number one, inefficient. So as I was talking about, when you're on Minterest, it is like a cooperative. You are earning a share of whatever proceeds the protocol earns. Everybody is. 100% of the proceeds goes right back to the users. That is not the case with any other lending protocol at all. What happens there? What happens with other lending protocols is that those proceeds, they go to a handful of people. Again, protocol owners and to third parties. Let's talk about the third parties. On all lending protocols, there are a couple of different individuals or groups that operate. So when you're depositing your assets, you're earning an interest rate from a borrower. The borrower must back their loan with some kind of collateral. So if I want to borrow $50, I need to back it by about, say, $100. You have to over collateralize. You have to have something that's backing your loan.
So when the market moves and the asset goes down a little bit, you still have enough collateral for the loan. So you over collateralize this. This is common in all lending, right?
Exactly. Well, at least in DeFi lending, it is.
Yeah.
Over collateralization absolutely is. And what happens, as you were saying, when the market goes volatile, in order to keep the system, this DeFi bank, solvent and healthy and all users healthy, when the price of an asset drops below a certain threshold where the user may not be able to pay back their loan properly, there is a liquidation event, meaning that collateral is then sold on market and it repays the system. So that means that nobody's locked out from withdrawing their assets if they want to, right? But with every lending protocol in the space outside of Minterest, this activity is outsourced to third parties. So you have all of these different individuals and whales and bots basically sitting on the outside of these protocols looking in. And what they do is they buy out these distressed assets, but they buy it out at a profit, significant profit. So if I'm in a situation where I've taken out a loan and unfortunately the market has moved against me, I'm going to be liquidated. What will happen is almost every single day of the week, these liquidators will take much more than they need to from you. They may need to take $10 from you, but they have the opportunity to take 50. They will take 50 every day of the week, all the time. That's unfair. And all the fees go to them as well. It all leaves the system to these third parties. With Minterest, what we do, we have excluded these third-party liquidators from the system entirely, number one. Minterest handles the liquidation process itself, but when I say it's not predatory, we don't take the $50 in this example. We just take maybe 20, put you right above that healthy threshold so that we keep you in on the bank. You keep your money as much as we possibly can. We don't want to profit from our users because the users are the stakeholders. They're the people who are determining what happens with the future of the protocol. Why would we want to remove you? We're not looking for the profit. We're not looking to over profit from anybody. We're the only ones that do that. Everybody else, no. They're all looking to take your money anytime that they possibly can.
Right. So it's kind of this concept of a Web3, we all own the protocol, we all get the tokens, but the truth is behind the scenes, that's not exactly the economics of what happens.
That's right.
And so it's worth always looking at this stuff. It's interesting because I have a crypto and DeFi academy. I've graduated over 1,000 students. Mm-hmm. And I always tell them, I'm like, look, when you go to Coinbase and you want Coinbase to change your Ethereum for Bitcoin, I'm like, let's not get it twisted here. That's a stockbroker in disguise. Wall Street's been running that game for 100 years. It has nothing to do with the blockchain. There's no piece of code that's optimizing the rate. You can't watch it happen on ETHScan. There's some dude, and I used to be that dude on Wall Street, that's market making and thinking, how much money can I make on this? To where you don't know, and I'm going to make as much as I can without you walking away as a customer. And I'm guessing the same thing happens with these liquidators.
It's the same problem.
And they deal with these illiquid situations, and it's fast timing, and they'll make as much as they can. And so that is ultimately not in the spirit of this, we all own everything. And so you're going to get a different result. And we've seen this happen. This has been called out on a few protocols, even places like Uniswap, where they said, look, the profits are not going into the token. The profits have jacked up and the token has not gone anywhere. The TVL has gone up and the token hasn't impressed. Why? Because all the cash is getting dumped into other actors. And people are having to reevaluate what they thought was this pure Web3 system. Of course, it's not going to be pure because it's the first iteration. But one of the things we love about Minterest is that you guys have been working on this problem for years, and you're keeping it not simple, but you're just keeping it, your intentions are pure, and like, we want to do this one thing that no one's doing better than anyone else.
That's right. And the other piece of this is that how do we actually distribute those proceeds back to our users?
Because so the devil's in the details, right?
It is.
Period. Because you can say, oh, I get an Aave token, so of course I participate. But it's not true. So the details are important, aren't they?
You're absolutely correct. So the way in which these systems were developed, it was brilliant, again, by Aave and Compound. How do you onboard people onto your system? How do you have them deposit their dollars? There was an incentive structure set up where if you deposit, then you also earn this governance token, right, for these protocols. And what is the value of the governance token? It allows you to create proposals and to vote and to participate. But the question ends up becoming, what is the value of my governance participation? And what we've realized over the last 3 years, and data shows it, is that the value of that token of participation is very little. As what happens is you end up having a market value that's largely sentiment driven. And so you hold onto the token, but it ends up not retaining value. With Minterest, what we've done is we have looked at this issue for an extensive period of time. And so what we decided to do was all of these fees that we are able to capture. By the way, we are able to capture about 5 times more fees than anybody else because we handle that liquidation process in-house, right? While still protecting our user from predatory liquidations. All those fees that are captured go back onto market. They buy back the Minterest token called Minty, and then it redistributes that token back to the users of the protocol. Those who are depositing, those who are borrowing, they get it. What this does is not only is the Minterest token, does it allow you to participate in governance, but it is a way to transfer that value, that fee value, the profit from the protocol right back to the users. So it is a method of channeling that value back to the users through the token, meaning that the token has the ability to retain some level of value beyond just the pure governance aspect of it. And that is where we believe there's a real win. Why you would want to actually participate in governance and also hold on to that token as well over the course of time.
Yeah. Now look, this is a great theory. And I've seen so many proposals and so many pitch decks that have these amazing theories. Mm-hmm. But recently you put this to test on the Mantle Network, and you came out and with this brand new concept that, you know, who knows how it could have been received. Some people could be like, well, Aave works great, leave me alone. But I think what you found was this huge insurgence of organic interest on your protocol. Can you tell me a little bit about the early signs of how that was received? Because I think even you were surprised.
I was. You're absolutely correct. So with Minterest, as I said, we've been developing it for years. We finally launched on the Mantle Network. Mantle is a blockchain. It's a layer 2 blockchain that sits on top of Ethereum. And they have their own ecosystem of projects that are there. And so we entered in January. We deployed Minterest in January. And what was so surprising was within the first month of being there, the message of what we were trying to create was so powerful that we moved into the top 5 by number of users, like as in, on Mantle Network within 1 month, meaning that, we have one of the largest user base already, just a month in to our deployment. And this is compared to other projects that have been there for almost a year, right? So we have at this point, over 9,000 users on Minterest, which is massive for that blockchain. And we've been building TVL liquidity ever since. And it's been an amazing experience. I mean, week after week, we continue having growth because people realize that they're actually able to, essentially earn better on Minterest, and they can see that the value of the token itself and retaining it will make a lot of sense because the protocol has already been generating fees that are far greater than any other protocol in the same exact situation as us already, and they will be benefiting from that. So it's been an incredible experience, and Mantle Network themselves have been great partners. They've seen the value from the beginning. They put a lot of faith in us to market us, to share the news of what Minterest is before we even launched officially, right? And that was a great partnership as well. So I'll have to give a big shout out to those guys too.
And you crossed $10 million TVL really quickly, right?
That's exactly right. So we were celebrating that just a few weeks ago itself. It was pretty massive just to be able to get there. We reached the top 10 top 10 by TVL basically on Mantle Network within just again a couple of months of being there, which it surprised all of us. How quickly we moved.
Do people just get it? Do they just see it and they're like, wow, this is transparent. Wow, I'm actually getting more yield, and I can actually see that this token's going to correlate to the future. And they're like, okay, it just makes sense. It's simple. I mean, that's the beauty of a product market fit, right? Is it's so much better than the current market. Is that the feedback you're getting from people? So
initially what happens is they'll come to Minterest and they'll notice first they look at the design. It's a very unique design. It's sort of tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but it's sort of inspired by the Porsche GT3. We have a dashboard that has like these dials and kind of speedometer, and it works very well. It tells you what is your supply rate, what's your borrow interest rate. It gives you all this information. That's the first thing they see. The second thing they see is I can get decent yield on this. Okay, interesting. Let's try it out. Then they try it, and then they get a little more curious. Like, how is it that this works exactly? That's when the questions begin. And that's where we end up having users who they've been sticking by us for the last several months. They haven't left at all because they get it now. So that's usually kind of that funnel process. They love the look of it. They love the yield. And then all of a sudden they're like, how does this thing work? And once they get it, they're there. They're locked in. And as we grow, the thing about Minterest is that it's unique in that it's a vanity point. It's a vanity metric to have TVL, right? The larger the better. But it doesn't necessarily mean much for other lending protocols when it comes to their users. It means a huge amount for Minterest users, because the more TVL, the more liquidity that comes onto Minterest, the more fees that are generated.
Right.
The more fees that are generated means that there are more minty tokens that can be purchased back, can be swapped for, more minty tokens that can be distributed then to users of the protocol, meaning it makes everyone else well off. The more TVL that comes onto the system, it just makes everyone's portfolio that much better.
Right. So say I'm lending out $1,000 worth of tokens on your platform, and the TVL is 10 million. Mm-hmm. If we get that TVL up to 100 million, I'm just making more money, even though I haven't lent more money. And even if my interest rate hasn't gone up, because the platform is a success, you're distributing that money back to me.
Exactly correct.
Okay.
Exactly correct.
Where do you go from here? Like, what are next steps? Because you clearly have a product market fit, which is, you've done a lot of companies over the years. That doesn't come along every now and then in a very competitive market where everyone and their mother has a DeFi platform. You obviously have referenced, you guys have been working on this for 3 years, and it shows. I mean, you guys worked through the bear market on this and have obviously planned this out, done all the work. Where do you go from here?
So Minterest has a much broader vision than just a single deployment, and that's it. When we look at the blockchain space, it is getting fragmented, and what that basically means is that you have new blockchains launching all the time.
Crazy.
Right? It's crazy.
We never
right?
predicted this 2 years ago. I thought we would consolidate, but now there's like 3 or 4x the number of blockchains, all with things happening.
And they're all fighting for the same liquidity, right?
So there's no new users coming in, really, not yet.
And so as a result of that, it's like you have to bridge like your, say, USDC stablecoin to n number of chains, right? So what that means then is that you're not able to pool funds together anymore. And that is the beauty of DeFi. It's like everyone can pool their funds together, be a cooperative, and move forward together. But now you have pockets across all these chains. And it's great that we have chains, but that fragmentation is a big problem. So what we're looking to do is to unify that fragmented liquidity back together again through lending. The idea is very simple. It doesn't matter what chain that you're on. You can deposit and you can borrow on whatever chain that you want to borrow on. It doesn't matter. This way what happens is you're supplying on Ethereum, you're borrowing on Mantle. But you don't have to think too hard about it. The point is, wherever you are, we are. And what this will allow the space to do is the fragmented liquidity. It means that any chain that has liquidity can tap into liquidity on every other chain that we're on. It builds their liquidity by us being on every other chain. So everybody benefits. So it's what we call true cross-chain lending. Lend on one chain, borrow on another one. And then that fragmented space comes right back together. And we're one again. And it's about unifying that liquidity together.
That sounds like a technological nightmare of a challenge.
It is.
I mean, Minterest alone doesn't sound like the easiest thing to pull off. With what you're doing behind the scenes and doing your own liquidations, I mean, that if I poke into that, that's not easy. And so now you're going to bring all the chains together, cross-chain liquidity.
Exactly. See, what's the point in doing something unless you're actually doing something hard and that can actually be meaningful for the space? There's no point. If it's just a matter of copycatting something, then okay, it's very easy. You can just go and fork another lending protocol, launch it, you're done and dusted. There's no point in doing that, at least not for us. We want to solve hard problems. This is a very hard problem to solve. So we are working with Layer 0, which is a bridge. It's a bridging solution, meaning it allows for users to move their assets from one chain to the other. And so we're working with them and with their liquidity layer, which actually has a lot of assets sitting on it, crypto assets called Stargate. And the idea is we're working to develop something on Stargate that would allow for those assets to move to any chain that we are on to enable that true cross-chain lending. It's not an easy problem to solve. Our team is still working at it, architecting and building it. And it's going to be something that we'll be launching early next year because it's not an easy problem to solve. For the moment, what we're doing is we'll be launching on new chains, on additional chains, preparing ourselves and our community of users for that moment where we'll be able to actually enable the true cross-chain lending early next year.
Okay. What chains are coming next?
That's something that we're still a little hush about because it's still confidential right now, but we'll be announcing it within the next month.
Some of the big layer 2s, I'm guessing, coming up, and some of these.
Some of the ones, the
base
way that we
chain,
think
maybe.
of the way that base is actually a very interesting one for sure. The way we think about it is there are a number of new chains that people have not spotted yet that are going to be massive. Those are the ones that we're initially targeting.
Okay.
Because
so you can be first mover there.
It's a huge first mover advantage. And so, there are a number of really cool chains actually that are doing unique things, unique consensus mechanisms where the way in which the security takes place. There are ones that also are very DeFi friendly. Their entire system is set up to benefit their users in a very DeFi focused way. So we'll be making an announcement within the next month or so on that front.
And what's the plan with the Minty token for generation? Mm-hmm. You know, I get to talk to a lot of founders. We obviously do some investing, and it's a big thing to launch your token. It only happens once. You want to do it right. So what are your plans there, your thoughts there? Mm-hmm. Is it on your mind? Are you concerned about it? Tell me.
Always, always, right?
Well
because so we have proven so far that what we have built works. Minterest is fully featured as a V1 from a V1 perspective, version 1 perspective. We completed our the liquidation engine, the solvency engine is what we call it. We completed that just 3 weeks ago, and it's been working really well. So V1's done. But in order for us to start deploying on other chains, in order for that to be a real success.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.